Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook. This evening, we're going to talk with Mr. Jeffrey Chow, and we're going to talk to him about a couple of very interesting and exciting things that he's been doing here in the San Francisco Bay Area to bring people together who have a common interest to do a, I guess you'd call it some social conscious things. So we're going to go right over to Jeff and say, Jeff, welcome to Reference Point. I'm really glad you're able to be here this evening. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So you, by profession, you're in the financial services industry,
right.
And but you've got your hands in a variety of social, I guess I'll call them socially conscious activities. The most, well, I don't know if it's the most significant, but one of the most significant is something that you refer to as Collaborate for Africa. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what that is and how was it that you, a Morgan Stanley guy, got involved with a thing like this?
So Collaborate for Africa is a very loose collection of people interested in Africa. It's mostly people here in the Bay Area. Our mailing list right now is over 600. So it's hard to believe there'd be over 600 people interested in activities in Africa here in the Bay Area. Yeah, it came to be because with my work at Morgan Stanley, I do a lot of work with charities and nonprofits. And met a person that had an issue, and he asked me what I did. I said, oh, I'm Morgan Stanley financial advisor. I work with families and managing their wealth, and I work with a lot of charities and nonprofits. And he says, well, I've got a nonprofit. Would you help us?
Why not?
And as it turns out, it was an educational fund in Kenya, and this was 2009. And as we talked, he said, well, would you come to our fundraiser? So we said, okay, sure.
Why not?
Sure. And we went to their fundraiser, and when they got to ask for donations, they said, you know, if we get our 501c3 status, our tax exempt status, all of your donations that made today will be tax deductible.
If.
Yes.
So it almost sounds like they a little bit put the cart before the horse, and they're having the fundraiser before they know they can give people the deduction.
So they came to me and said afterward and said, well, what'd you think? And I said, well, it was really nicely done, but what's with this if? And they said, well, you know, this is, again, it was 2009. It was after the financial crisis. They said, well, there was a law firm that's gonna do the filing for us pro bono, but right now, with the downturn, all the lawyers are trying to rebuild their practices and make a living, and so we've been kind of put on hold. And my comment to them, knowing I had a good solution, was, why do you need your 501c3 status? And they looked at me and said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, if we put you with another nonprofit, there's a nonprofit here in the San Francisco Bay Area called One World Children's Fund, and if they'll accept you as a champion, they become your fiscal sponsor. You raise money, you have people donate to your project at One World Children's Fund, and One World Children's Fund will pass the money through to your project.
Oh.
And so they said, and I said, oh, by the way, their stated regrant rate is 100%. They will not take a cut.
So 100% of the money that someone would donate, that they earmark for whatever that project was, the educational fund in Kenya, then One World Children's Fund would make sure that it gets to those folks. Now, so would the donor make the check out to One World Children's Fund for the purpose of, or would they make it out to whatever the other group was called?
One World Children's Fund for the purpose of. Yeah, if you go to the One World Children's Fund site, you'll see the different projects, and you earmark it for the project.
Oh.
And so they thought that was great. They said, great, sign us up. And so we made that introduction, and it takes there's a process you have to go through. One World Children's Fund, if the IRS calls and says, you're sending money to Kenya, is this a valid, you know, charitable effort, they have to be able to defend that. So they have to go through a process. Mm-hmm. And as they were going through the process, I realized, well, I know a lot of people doing work in Africa. What if we put them all in the same room?
Oh.
And saw what, you know, see what would happen, and that's what we did. So November 2009, I started calling up people that I knew that were interested in Africa, saying, hey, come to this location in Palo Alto on this night, let's talk. And we had 20 people show up.
Wow.
And that was the start.
Wow. So the folks that came then and that are coming now. You said you have something like 600 names on your contact list,
right,
tied to Collaborate for Africa. Are they all looking for this kind of scenario that ties to One World Children's Fund, or what?
There's a broad range. So yeah, so probably 3 or 4 projects now are One World Children's Fund champions. And the former executive director at One World Children's Fund used to joke. She said whenever there was a new application from Africa, she always thought it was from me.
There you go.
But no, there's a broad range of collaborations that we're looking for, and a broad range of things that people are working on, from water to health to education, economic development, just this broad range. And then we're looking for all sorts of different kinds of partnerships to evolve out of this.
It kind of sounds like your involvement in the Africa connection was sort of by happenstance.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
you weren't looking to try to do something. I mean, that wasn't something that was like, this is what I want to do with my life type thing.
No, absolutely not. It was a group that needed help that just happened to be working in Kenya.
Right.
And then I, as I sat back, I said, well, what's kind of a grouping that people could identify with? It's like, we draw a circle around Africa.
Got it. So what makes this group unique in the sense that there are lots of formal and informal groups that are looking to move into, do something in a specific environment, or to network in some way so that they can get connected up to other people. What makes Collaborate for Africa unique?
So a couple of things. One is we're really focused on collaboration. So I view the group as a platform for people to connect, and the goal is to do something with those connections. It's not just to connect and have fun and be social.
Right.
We like those things too, but it's really to make something happen and be more efficient and effective at doing what you were already trying to do. If you can partner with someone like this Education Fund and One World Children's Fund, it just allowed them to do what they wanted to do in a simpler and more effective manner. And that's really what we're looking to do. So we're really focused on, and that's really the goal. The focus is on making something happen. It's not just about coming together and socialize.
Right.
It's a platform looking for those interactions.
Trying to get something done, I guess.
It's absolutely about trying to get something done.
And so 2009, you said October, November 2009 is when you had your first meeting. This is now July 2015, so it's, pushing 6 years, 5.5, getting close to 6 years. And you've got a lot of people, and sometimes, number of people is one thing, but is anything really getting done is another. And how, from your assessment, how effective has this been? Have you seen these collaborations come together to a positive end?
So we have. I mean, we've seen things like there was a woman named Gloria Upchurch who spoke at one of our meetings up in San Francisco, and she's creating these clean delivery kits. So they're for like midwives to help in the delivery of a baby in childbirth, and she was talking about how she collects the materials and what goes into them and how she distributes them. And somebody said, I think it might have been me, said, well, how do you pay for these things? And she said, well, out of my retirement accounts.
Oh my goodness.
I take money out of my retirement accounts, and she wasn't 59 enough. She pays the penalty, pays the taxes, and she buys this material.
Wow.
To create these kits to send to Africa. And somebody in the audience, somebody in the group just said, oh, don't you know about MedShare? And we all looked at him and said, well, no, tell us more. So MedShare is quite a large nonprofit, Atlanta-based. They have a facility here in San Leandro. And their facility in San Leandro is 55,000 square feet.
Wow.
So you walk in, you walk into this large warehouse. They collect medical supplies, largely out of operating rooms that haven't been used, haven't been opened. They're brand new.
Right.
They resort them and repurpose them, and Gloria was able to go to MedShare. She made a small donation, and she was able to get the materials to to build her clean delivery kits.
Oh my goodness! Wow. And is that an ongoing? It doesn't matter if it's an ongoing thing for her. It's just like fascinating. Somebody had just put somebody else together. That's a great success story.
And saved Gloria's retirement accounts.
Yeah. You mentioned two things that I want to, or two locations. You said initially, hey, we're having this meeting down here in Palo Alto, and then you said we had a meeting in San Francisco. So it sounds like, where does the Collaborate for Africa group meet?
We tend to alternate our meetings. We have monthly meetings. We alternate between San Francisco and then Santa Clara University, the Frugal Innovation Lab at Santa Clara University.
Okay. I want to mention to the folks that are watching this show that if you have any interest in or are connected to any activity that looks to support actions in Africa, you should send us a query. Send me an email at info@referencepointtv.com or send one to Jeff. I think we have his email address that you could send it to directly to, and just let him know that you're interested in finding out when the next Collaborate for Africa meeting might be in the location that's closer to you. Is it up in San Francisco or is it down in Santa Clara? Because if you've got something that you're interested in doing, this might be a really good opportunity for you to connect up. So, there's another thing that you've sort of started that came out of Collaborate for Africa, and what do you call it?
Yes.
Continue the conversation.
Continuing the conversation.
So, what I got from the conversation that you and I had about this is that the recognition that this format of Collaborate for Africa, with its successful track record, that is somewhat unique in the way that a lot of people come together on things. That successful action got you thinking about some other things. Is that right?
Actually, it's the other way around. Yeah, continuing the conversation started first.
It started before Collaborate for Africa.
Started before Collaborate for Africa.
Oh, okay, well.
And again, a lot of my work at Morgan Stanley is related to philanthropy. How do we increase philanthropic impact? And through 2008, I had conversations with a couple of different people and said, well, we've had very similar conversations. Should we combine and bring it into a single conversation? And people thought that was a great idea, and people are busy. By the time we got together, it was late 2008. We were right, in the, by late 2008, we could tell the financial crisis was going to be really bad.
Right.
And it was going to impact our community in a dramatic way.
When you say our community?
So I'm calling our community roughly San Mateo and Santa Clara counties.
Okay.
We could broaden out and look at the nation, but for continuing the conversation, we kind of think about San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, and so we said, well, most of us weren't alive in the Great Depression.
Right.
If we weren't adults. We don't remember the Great Depression. So the 2008 financial crisis was the worst financial crisis, has been the worst financial crisis of our lifetime.
Right.
And so we were kind of on untested ground. And so my kind of method of operation when you're on untested ground is we're not sure what's going to happen. Let's just start pulling people together and discuss where we think we might be. And that's how continuing the conversation started. Just contacting people and saying, we're in this really difficult time. We know it's going to dramatically impact our community. Let's just talk and see where we might be able to be of help.
Were these business leaders, political leaders, mom and dads who just had kids in elementary school? I mean, who were they?
Yes, all of the above. We've had people from local politicians, a lot of local, especially on the independent business side, like Kepler's bookstore. Mm-hmm. Retirees. We meet on Thursday mornings, so people have to have their control of their schedules to be able to come on a Thursday morning meeting. We've had people out of Stanford, and just to think about looking at what's happening in the community and where a group like ours might be able to have some positive impact.
So has it had positive impact?
Sure. Again, right, it's all about making something happen. If you want
Right.
something to change, somebody's got to do something. So the whole goal of continuing the conversation, just like Collaborate for Africa, is to look and identify key points of action. Mm. Is there some place where we can help a project further their efforts, or is there something that we can do that might galvanize an effort? So with continuing the conversation, the group that we've probably done the most with is Kepler's Bookstore. So like in 2011, we helped Kepler's host a movie night series.
Oh, okay.
And I think we ended up showing 11 or 12 or 13 different films at Kepler's in 2011, kind of on the same kind of social conscious message that they do with a lot of their author events, but we did it with film.
Toward what end?
Kepler's needs profitable revenue to stay in business, and if we want, Kepler's provides tremendous value to our community.
Right.
Our Mid-Peninsula community would be really sad if we lost Kepler's Bookstore. And in order for a business to stay in business, they need profitable revenue.
Right.
And so those movies were profitable, drove profitable revenue.
They got people to come to the facility, and when they were there, they bought something, or whatever, or they became patrons in some way, shape, or form.
Well, Dave, it was simpler than that. We charged them. Yeah, they were ticketed events.
So I want to kind of roll back a little bit on this, because it sounds like the thing that was the impetus for this was part of the conversation pertaining to, as a community who are in the throes of this economic struggle, for independent businesses that are struggling, what can be done in order to find a way to support our independent business activity?
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly
and
right.
Kepler's happened to be the poster child, if you would, for that activity.
Kepler's is certainly for a lot of the Mid-Peninsula, Kepler's is the poster child for local independent businesses.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that's an example of the type of thing, and that actually is kind of very interesting, because there are a number of hot button issues that we have here in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, having to do with support for small business, with housing, with transportation, with infrastructure, etc. And so I'm sort of concluding or jumping to a conclusion that those kinds of issues are things that are being talked about at these kinds of collaborative meetings.
They're being talked about. All those issues that you comment on. Yeah, we do talk about it, but we also I go through a right sizing effort. So one of the reasons that we spent so much time with Kepler's, not only is Kepler's an important, beloved business in our community, but there was a right sizing effort. For a group our size that meets once a week, Kepler's was a project or a business where we could really have an impact.
Oh, okay.
So maybe something like immigration, important in our community, lots of different opinions, but for a group our size, it's hard for us to have an impact on something like immigration.
As an overall broad thing, but there may be something on a very narrow focus within the community that may be relevant.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to come down and see if there's something in our community that, again, in a group of our size with our resources, and maybe a little bit more, we might be able to stretch, but we're going to try to look for activities that our resource capability could have an impact, a positive impact.
Interesting. So the thing, it sounds like there's been success in the activities of continue the conversation, success in the activities of Collaborate for Africa, and the principles that you're using to foster each of these things have commonality. They're similar principles.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about that, because this show gets to be aired all over the Bay Area, but it's on YouTube, and I've had people from the East Coast comment on certain things and stuff like that. So how can someone who's not here in Santa Clara or San Mateo counties participate, or how can they look to emulate what it is that you've successfully created here?
So, so part of this thought is, again, right, the reason I run these organizations or these groups is we're looking to make something happen. That's the clear stated goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about making something happen. Now, it doesn't mean every meeting we try to make something happen, but it may take us, it's a while to figure out what that is to make something happen. But eventually, I'm going to always come back to there's here in our local community, the community's continues to be under plenty of stress here as we're trying to recover out of this financial crisis, and there are things that we can do that might make it easier for some people. So we're always going to come back and look for an action that's going to help somebody do something to make it better for somebody, to make Kepler's more sustainable, or somebody be able to do better at their job so they can keep their income. So that operating philosophy of we're looking for action,
right,
is a critical piece. And then there's just a couple of other really simple things. One is you oftentimes go to forums and they try to line up speakers and they try to run multiple speakers through this session,
right,
and we don't do that. I would rather give speakers more time and allow for lots of discussion.
Got it.
And especially for a group called Continuing the Conversation, you'd expect it to be conversational.
Yeah, right.
Our sessions are very conversational because that interaction's important. And
so I'm going to interject, and it sounds like what you're suggesting is that if there is someone that has an area of activity or interest that they wish to inform that group about, with the possibility that they may be able to contribute to the positive motion, those people have the chance to speak to the team, to the group, and present their information and then talk about it. And then maybe something will develop from it in the sense of this is right for us, or maybe it won't be, this isn't the right thing for us. But at least you have the opportunity to engage. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Dave. Yeah, we want that engagement. It's not just a one-way, I'm going to present and then call me later. We want to engage and go that spend a little more time seeing if does this fit, does this make sense, can we find a way to actually work together. So
going back to this concept of if someone's watching this show that lives in a different part of the country or part of the Bay Area that's not, for them to try to put something similar together, is the foundational principle of looking to have some kind of action take place, that makes a lot of sense. And then allow for people to really come in and present, and not just a one-shot type of a thing. But I'm trying to grasp, you didn't go out and start a corporate entity to try to do this. You haven't done, you're just kind of doing this, right? How simple is it to start something like this, I guess is what I'm asking.
There is no entity.
There is no entity.
Yes, it's a very loose collection of people that exist in my email, as an email list. That's it. There's no money involved. Nobody's paying
dues.
There's no dues. It's just a very loose collection.
But there's impact from this loose collection of people. And I think that's what's the critical and very fascinating thing, because it sounds like what you've been able to do is draw in people of like mind, not necessarily interested in a particular cause, but of like mind in the sense of, I think we could find a way to get something done. Maybe we can do better. And at least that's what I'm understanding.
That's exactly right. So at the Collaborate for Africa meeting in May, we had the director of the Center for Global Public Health at UC Berkeley come. Head of a major center at a major university, and I told her, right, your goal in coming is to establish and further your your partnerships and collaborations. That was her whole goal for coming.
Mm-hmm. Cool, cool. Well, you know, we're getting down to, we don't have too much time left here in our time together, Jeff, but I want to reinforce a couple things with the viewing audience, and I want you to chime in here. First thing is, this does not have to be hard to do, to bring a group together to try to find a way to better the environment in your community, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And to go about it is as simple as asking people. Is that a fair statement? Because that's pretty much what you did, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
And you've successfully got 2 of these things going. Why do you do it?
Well, at the end of the day, right, we want to have impact in our lives.
Uh-huh.
And this is a way that I create impact.
Wow. I understand that. I like that. So I'm going to suggest to the people out there that if they want to try to create and foster something, there's a way to do it. You can actually email Jeff and he'll help you figure that out. But if you're in the community here and you're interested in either of these 2 primary areas that we talked about, by all means, reach out, connect, collaborate, because what we're trying to accomplish here, or what Jeff is trying to accomplish here, is really very significant. I mean, there's so much, people, you see stuff a lot of times where people, you know, they gripe about the way things are, if only, if only, if only. And what you're doing with Collaborate for Africa and with continuing the conversation is bringing people together to not just a if only, but to try to get something done. So, Jeff, really appreciate your coming here to join us on Reference Point. Thank you very much, and ladies and gentlemen, connect with this man, okay? Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time on Reference Point.
Thank you, Dave.